There is a physicist. He has spent 30 years at one of the most respected universities on Earth. He has published over 200 papers. He has shaken hands with Nobel laureates. And one night, alone in his office, he writes a single equation on a whiteboard. He stares at it for a long time. Then, he erases it. Not because it was wrong, because it was right. And what it said about time would have destroyed everything his colleagues believed. I am going to show you that equation. I am going to show you what it means, but I need you to stay with me until the very end of this video, because the answer is not what you think. It is so much stranger than that. Let us start with something you already know. Time moves forward. You were born, you grew, you are watching this video right now, and eventually you will stop watching videos. That is the arrow of time. It always points in one direction, past to future. That is the rule. Except here's the problem. That rule does not exist in physics. Not really. Take every fundamental equation in physics and run it backwards. Run gravity backwards, run electromagnetism backwards, run quantum mechanics backwards. They all work perfectly. They are completely reversible. The mathematics does not care which direction time flows. So physicists have a word for this. They call it time symmetry. And for decades, the mainstream answer to why we experience time in one direction has been something called entropy. The idea that the universe moves from order to disorder, that a glass can fall off a table and shatter, but 1,000 broken pieces will never jump off the floor and reassemble into a glass. Entropy increases. Time flows forward. That was the answer. Clean, simple, accepted. But there was always a crack in that answer. A small, uncomfortable crack that most physicists decided to paper over and ignore. And it starts with a question so basic it sounds almost stupid. Why was entropy low in the first place? Think about it. If entropy only ever increases, if disorder always grows, then at the very beginning of the universe, everything had to be in an almost impossibly ordered state. The Big Bang was not chaos. It was the single most ordered moment in the history of existence, and nobody knows why. And that question, that one ignored question, is where our story really begins. In the early 2000s, a small group of physicists started working on something that the mainstream community found deeply uncomfortable. Not dangerous, not evil, just uncomfortable. In the way that a true idea is sometimes uncomfortable before the world is ready for it. Their theory started with a simple thought experiment. What if time is not a dimension at all? What if time is not something the universe moves through, like a river moving through a landscape? What if time is something the universe creates, the way heat is created by friction? Not a thing that exists, but a thing that happens. Now stay with me here, because this is where it gets beautiful. There is a concept in quantum mechanics called entanglement. You have probably heard of it. Two particles become linked. You measure one and instantly know something about the other, regardless of the distance between them. Einstein hated it. He called it spooky action at a distance. But entanglement is real. It has been proven in laboratory after laboratory. And those same researchers, the uncomfortable ones, began to ask a radical question. What if time itself is a product of entanglement? What if the reason we experience a past and a future, the reason cause always comes before effect, the reason we remember yesterday but not tomorrow, is because the particles that make up your brain are entangled with the rest of the universe in a very specific, very directional way? In other words, time does not flow through you. Time is flowing out of you, out of the relationships between particles, out of the quantum information that every object in the universe is constantly exchanging. This is called the quantum entanglement theory of time, and it makes a prediction so strange, so counterintuitive, that when it was first published, the paper received barely any attention. Because if this theory is correct, then in a universe where nothing was entangled, where particles had no relationships with each other at all, time would not slow down. It would not stop. It would simply not exist. A universe with no entanglement is a universe with no time. And here is the crack that blew the whole thing open. Physicists have known for decades that there is a version of the quantum equations where exactly that is true. It is called the Wheeler-DeWitt equation, and it describes the universe at the most fundamental level. And in that equation, time does not appear anywhere at all. The universe at its deepest level is timeless. And the physicist in that office, the one who erased the equation, he had figured out what that means for us. Here is what he had written on that whiteboard. He had taken the Wheeler-DeWitt equation and combined it with the mathematics of quantum entanglement and arrived at something that should not be possible. A proof that the flow of time, the thing you feel right now, the thing that makes this moment feel like now and yesterday feel like then, is not a feature of the universe. It is a feature of your perspective inside the universe. From outside the universe, if such a thing were even meaningful, there is no past, there is no future, there is no sequence of events. Everything that has ever happened and everything that will ever happen exists simultaneously, the way all the pages of a book exist simultaneously, even though you can only read one at a time. Your experience of time, the sense that you are moving through it, is the universe reading itself. And you are the bookmark. Now here is why physicists refuse to believe this. Not because the math is wrong. The math works. Not because the logic is flawed. The logic is consistent. They refuse to believe it because of what it implies about free will. Because if time is not a dimension the universe is moving through, if everything is already written in the quantum state of entangled particles, then every decision you think you are making has already been made, not by God, not by fate, by physics. Your sense of choosing is real. Your experience of the present moment is real, but the outcome was never in question. It was settled at the Big Bang. That is what the equation said. That is why he erased it. Not because he did not believe it, because he did not know what it would do to the people who heard it. But I think you can handle it, because here is the other side of that equation, the part he almost did not write. If your experience of time is generated by your entanglement with the universe, then the quality of that experience, the richness of it, the depth of it, the feeling that your life is meaningful, none of that is canceled by determinism. A song is not less beautiful because the notes were written before you heard it. The present moment is still yours, completely and entirely yours, even if it always was. That is the theory about time that physicists refuse to believe, not because it destroys meaning, but because it forces them to find meaning somewhere they were not looking, right here, right now, in a universe that was always, already pointing toward this exact moment.